I used to think funerals were about closure. About final chapters. About the gentle, aching acceptance of a life that had ended. But my husband's funeral felt nothing like an ending. It felt like the beginning of something I could not yet name. The air that morning was unusually still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The sky hung low with thick winter clouds, the kind that made everything look like an old photograph, muted, grainy, drained of life. The cemetery smelled of damp soil and fading chrysanthemums. Even the wind refused to whisper. People said it was beautiful weather for a burial. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I stood beside the polished casket, my fingers trembling inside my gloves. The wood was dark mahogany, too elegant, too expensive. Lucas would have hated it. He wasn't a polished man. He didn't like luxury. He preferred simple things, wooden mugs, old jackets, cheap roadside tea, laughter that came from the stomach. The man lying in that coffin was not the man I married. Not in spirit. Not in story. Not in truth. Everyone stood behind me, quiet and respectful, waiting for my tears. But tears refused to come. It's strange how grief works. Sometimes it floods you, sometimes it leaves you bone dry. Instead of crying, I felt, watched. A prickle crawled up my neck, like eyes were hidden behind every gravestone. I turned slightly. People bowed their heads. Some pretended to wipe tears. But a few, especially my stepchildren, looked bored. Yes. Bored. Strange thing to feel at a man's funeral. I swallowed hard. The pastor's voice blurred into the background as he read the final prayer. As he closed his Bible, a vibration buzzed in my coat pocket, faint enough to miss, but close enough to feel. A message. Who would text me at a funeral? I waited until people lowered their heads again. Then I slid my phone from my pocket, hiding it between my coat and my body. One message. Unknown number. My breath caught. Leora. I'm alive. The ground seemed to tilt under my feet. My heart thudded against my ribs. I blinked once, twice, 3 times. Alive? No. No, no. This must be someone's cruel joke. Someone hacking. Someone trying to play with a grieving widow. Another message came instantly, as if the sender knew I doubted. I'm not in the coffin. My fingers turned cold. I stared at the screen, unable to think, breathe, or move. Not in the coffin? I read it again and again, each repetition tightening something inside me. Before I could reply, a third message appeared. Please, don't react. They're watching us. My stomach dropped. I lifted my gaze slowly, scared of what I might see. My stepchildren, Ethan and Chloe, stood a little distance away. They weren't even pretending to mourn anymore. They were whispering to each other, glancing at me, then at the coffin, then back again. Something sharp flickered in their eyes, not sadness, not grief, not loss. Something else. Suspicion? Fear? Or possession? Ethan folded his arms. Chloe tightened her grip on her purse. Both looked restless. Impatient. As if they couldn't wait for the funeral to end. A new message popped up. Don't trust the children. I forced myself to keep my face blank. My knees wobbled. I gripped the edge of the coffin to steady myself. Don't trust the children. My throat dried. My pulse hammered. This couldn't be real. This had to be someone trying to manipulate me. But the messages kept coming, fast, urgent, terrified. You asked who I am. I can't say. Not here. Not yet. Just listen carefully. You are in danger, Leora. Danger? From whom? The pastor stepped back, nodding to me for the final farewell. I barely noticed. My eyes flicked around the cemetery again. I didn't know who to fear, strangers, or family. I texted back with shaking hands. Who are you? The reply was instant. Someone you used to love. My chest tightened. Used to love? What did that mean? A friend? A sibling? Someone from my past? Lucas himself? I typed again. Lucas? The ellipsis appeared. Disappeared. Reappeared. Then vanished. No reply. Not for a long moment. Finally, my phone lit up. They're coming toward you. Don't let them see your phone. I jolted and instinctively slipped the phone back into my pocket just as Ethan and Chloe approached. Ethan forced a sympathetic smile. Chloe dabbed her dry eyes with a tissue she didn't need. Are you okay? Ethan asked. I nodded too quickly. Fine. Chloe tilted her head. You look pale. I'm tired. Ethan's gaze flickered to my coat pocket. What was that you were looking at? He asked. I froze. It's nothing, I whispered. He didn't believe me. I could tell by the way his jaw tightened. Chloe looped her arm through mine. Let's get you home. You shouldn't be alone. Alone? With them? My phone buzzed again. I didn't dare look. Not with their eyes glued to me. But the vibration didn't stop. 3, 4, 5 times. Whoever was messaging me, whoever was insisting they were alive, they were desperate. Chloe's grip tightened subtly, almost possessively. Ethan leaned in. Come on. Let's go. I swallowed, nodding weakly. As they guided me away from the grave, I allowed myself one last glance at the coffin that supposedly held my husband. The polished wood reflected the gray sky. The flowers lay perfectly arranged. The pastor stood waiting for us to leave. Everything looked ordinary. But my instincts? They screamed. Something was wrong. Something was terribly, impossibly wrong. The car ride home felt suffocating. Ethan drove. Chloe sat beside him. I sat in the back seat alone, my phone burning against my thigh. Every time I felt it vibrate, fear crawled down my spine. I wanted to check the messages. I needed to. But Ethan kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror, his eyes sharp and unblinking. As if waiting for me to slip. As if expecting something. The cemetery grew smaller behind us, swallowed by fog and distance. The city lights blurred through the windshield, glowing like distant embers. I pressed myself into the corner of the seat, heart pounding. Whoever messaged me. Whoever claimed to be alive. Whoever warned me not to trust the children. They knew something. Something terrifying. Something buried. Literally. I finally dared to slide my phone out just enough to read the latest message. One sentence. Leora, they were never your children. My breath caught. A second message followed. And Lucas was never the man you thought he was. The car hit a bump. My phone nearly slipped from my hands. I shoved it back into my pocket just as Ethan's gaze snapped up to the mirror again. His eyes were cold. Chloe's shoulders were rigid. Neither of them spoke. The silence stretched too long. Too heavy. Too wrong. Then my phone vibrated again, one last time. A message that made my skin crawl. When you reach the house, don't go inside. I stiffened. Ethan looked at me through the mirror. Chloe turned slightly in her seat. The car slowed as we neared my home, the home I once shared with Lucas. The home filled with memories. The home I thought was safe. It didn't feel safe now. As the engine rolled to a stop, Ethan turned around fully. Come on, Leora, he said softly. Too softly. Too calm. Chloe opened her door. We'll take care of you. Take care of me? My phone buzzed sharply, as if screaming. I swallowed and slowly opened the door, my mind spinning, heart racing. As my feet touched the driveway, the cold message echoed in my skull. Whatever you do. Leora, don't go inside. I lifted my eyes toward my home. The lights were already on. Someone was inside. And I suddenly realized. This funeral wasn't the beginning of grief. It was the beginning of a nightmare. The night felt colder than it should have been. Not winter cold. Something else. Something that seeped into the bones, like a warning wrapped in frost. I stood in my driveway, staring at the glowing windows of the house I had shared with Lucas for 8 years. A house that once smelled like bread on Sunday mornings and cedarwood on rainy nights. A house that once echoed with laughter, arguments, whispered reconciliations, and soft apologies. Tonight it looked unfamiliar. As if someone had rearranged the breath inside its walls. Ethan and Chloe stood on either side of me, waiting. Watching. Too close. Chloe touched my arm gently. "Leora, you're shaking. Let's go inside. You shouldn't be standing out here." I forced a small smile. "Just cold, that's all." Liar. My body was trembling, yes, but not from the cold. My phone buzzed again. Not a message. A call. Unknown number. My heart jumped to my throat. Before I could react, Ethan stepped closer, suspicious. "Who's calling you?" he asked. I clutched my purse. Bank updates. They'd been texting me all morning. His jaw twitched. He didn't buy it, not fully, but he stepped back. The phone kept vibrating. Persistent. Urgent. Desperate. I pressed answer but didn't lift the phone to my ear. I kept it inside my purse, letting the caller's voice spill through faintly. "Leora, don't go in," a whisper came. Breathless. Terrified. Masculine. My lungs locked. Every hair on my body stood straight. Chloe opened the front door, warm yellow light spilling out onto the cold driveway. I froze. The voice on the phone trembled. "Please. Listen to me. The house isn't safe. They." The call cut off. Just died. Silence. Chloe turned. "Leora? What's wrong?" "Everything. Everything is wrong." But I forced myself to move, step by step, toward the doorway, every instinct screaming for me to run. As I stepped inside, the familiar scent of my own home hit me. Only, it wasn't familiar. The faint smell of lavender was gone. The warmth felt gone. Something metallic lingered in the air instead, cold, sharp, unsettling. Like fear. "Sit down," Ethan said. "I'll make tea." His voice sounded rehearsed. Chloe closed the door behind me, locking it. Why did she lock it? I scanned the living room, nothing seemed moved, nothing out of place, yet something was deeply, undeniably wrong. My phone buzzed again. A message. Short. Urgent. "You're not alone in the house." I stiffened. I forced myself to look into the hallway mirror, the old gilded one Lucas bought from an antique market. A mirror that had reflected years of our lives together. Tonight it reflected a stranger's eyes staring back at me. My own. Wide. Fearful. Searching. Chloe sat beside me. "You look like you've seen a ghost." If only it were that simple. I pretended to adjust my scarf and sneakily checked my phone. Another message. "They know I'm alive." A jolt shot through me. He is alive. Or someone wants me to believe so. A third message came immediately. "The person inside the house is not who you think." The world tilted again. My eyes darted across the room, nothing unusual. Nothing threatening. Just the fireplace, the old bookshelf, the photo frames. One caught my eye. A picture of Lucas with Ethan and Chloe at a family barbecue. I had always liked that photo. But tonight, it felt staged. Careful. Posed. Strategic. Ethan returned with tea. "Here." His hands didn't tremble. Mine did. "Thank you," I whispered. I didn't drink. A long silence stretched between the three of us.
Too long. Finally, I forced myself to ask, when did you two last speak to your father? Their eyes flickered. Chloe answered too quickly. A week ago. Ethan glanced at her sharply. No, 2 weeks. A lie. A bad one. They didn't even agree with each other. I set the cup down. He told me he met you both 3 days before he died. Ethan froze. Chloe's eyes widened. A quiet beat passed. Then Chloe forced a laugh. Oh, yes. Yes, 3 days. I forgot. I swallowed. They were lying again. But why? My phone buzzed again. I felt it, burning against my side. I excused myself. I need to get something from upstairs. Ethan stepped in front of me. No. Stay downstairs. You shouldn't strain yourself. My blood ran cold. Why didn't they want me upstairs? What was up there? Why? I asked, voice trembling. Ethan blinked. Because you're still grieving. You're fragile. We just buried him, Leora. Let us take care of things. My pulse pounded in my ears. I can walk up a flight of stairs, I whispered. His expression hardened. I said stay downstairs. Chloe stood behind him, her face pale. Something inside me cracked. Fear. Real fear. I sat slowly, pretending to comply, but inside my head, thoughts raced like wildfire. If they didn't want me upstairs. Then maybe. Lucas had been upstairs when he. No. No, stop. I looked at the staircase again. Dark. Silent. Waiting. Something heavy sat on the 5th step. A shadow. No. A shoe. A man's shoe. Lucas' shoe. I felt the air leave my lungs. Chloe's voice trembled. Leora, sit. My phone vibrated violently. I glanced down. A message. Run to the back door. Now. My heart lurched. Ethan stared at me. What was that? He asked. I forced a smile. Nothing. Another message appeared. Run. Before they stop you. I stood abruptly. I need fresh air. Ethan blocked the doorway. Not now. I took a step back. My voice rose. Move, Ethan. No, he said darkly. Chloe whispered, please sit down, Leora. The shadows in the hallway stretched longer. Darker. Thicker. Something creaked upstairs. A footstep? Or my imagination? I looked between them, their bodies stiff, their eyes tense. And suddenly. They weren't here to comfort me. They were here to control me. I felt heat rush to my face, panic rising fast. I bolted. Straight toward the dining room. Chloe screamed. Leora. No. Ethan lunged but grabbed only air as I sprinted to the kitchen. My phone buzzed again. Left side, back door, hurry. I threw myself toward the back of the house. My feet pounded the floor. My lungs burned. Ethan's footsteps thundered behind me. Leora. Stop. I didn't. I reached the back door, the metal felt ice cold beneath my fingers. I yanked it open. And froze. Someone was standing outside. A man. Tall. Hooded. Breathing hard. My heart stopped. He lifted his head slowly. A scar across his left eyebrow. Eyes wide with fear. Voice trembling. Leora, it's me. My throat tightened so hard I couldn't breathe. No. No, this couldn't be real. He stepped closer into the kitchen light. And I saw him. Fully. Clearly. Alive. Lucas, I whispered. My husband. The man I buried this morning. Was standing in front of me, chest rising and falling with panic. Alive. Ethan roared behind me, footsteps crashing closer. Don't let him in. Lucas grabbed my wrist. Leora, run. Before they kill us both. The world spun. I stumbled back. Ethan lunged for me. Lucas pulled me. Chloe screamed. And the truth, the real, terrifying truth, cracked open inside me. I buried the wrong man. Or the wrong story. Or the wrong life. Because the man standing in my kitchen was not a ghost. He was a survivor. And the children screaming behind me were not grieving. They were hunting. When I reached home, the house felt colder than the graveyard. The hallway light flickered, but tonight it felt like a warning. I hung my shawl on the hook and leaned against the wall, trying to breathe through the ache in my chest. I thought losing Nathaniel was the worst pain a woman could feel. I was wrong. Because grief is heavy. But confusion? Confusion is deadly. I walked into the living room and sat on the sofa, the same sofa where Nathaniel used to fall asleep with the TV remote on his chest, the same sofa where he held my hands when he apologized for coming home late. The same sofa where the truth had been hidden, the same sofa where he disappeared from my life without warning. I stared at my phone again. The message glowed like a knife. I'm alive. I'm not in the coffin. Every cell in my body screamed the same question. Was I losing my mind? I typed carefully, my fingers trembling. If you're really Nathaniel, prove it. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Appeared again. Finally. I can't. Not yet. They're watching us. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. They. Not he. Not someone. They. I felt a cold weight settle into my chest. Fear, sharp and metallic, ran from my toes to my scalp. Before I could reply, another message came. Don't trust the children. My skin went icy. The children? Sophie and Lucas? My stepchildren? I blinked hard. The floor suddenly felt like it was tilting under me. This had to be a sick joke. Some twisted prank. But who would do this? Who would dare? I walked toward the kitchen, needing water, needing something to ground me. The moment I entered, the first thing I noticed was the family calendar on the fridge. There was a big black X on today's date. I hadn't drawn it. I grabbed my phone again and read the messages over and over. They didn't change. They didn't disappear. Then I heard it. A soft creak. Coming from upstairs. My heart froze. Nobody else was home. The children had gone to my sister-in-law's house after the funeral. They hated staying here with me. They only pretended to like me when Nathaniel was alive. I stepped toward the staircase, each step trembling beneath my feet. Hello. My voice was thin, almost childlike. No response. Another creak. This one heavier. Like someone shifting their weight. I swallowed. Fear crawled up my spine, but so did curiosity. I moved slowly up the stairs, gripping the banister. Every breath felt loud in my ears. When I reached the top, the hallway was dark except for a faint strip of light peeking from Nathaniel's office door. A light I knew I had turned off. I took one step. Then another. Then reached for the doorknob. Before I touched it, my phone buzzed. A new message. I lowered my hand, lifted the phone, and read it. They're in the house. My lungs stopped working. My hands went numb. And my eyes slowly lifted toward the office door. Just as the light inside flicked off. The hallway was dark, silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator downstairs. My phone slipped from my trembling hands, clattering against the wooden floor. They're in the house. I swallowed. My pulse thundered in my ears. Fear threatened to paralyze me, but something deeper, sharper, demanded I move. I had to know. I had to see. I grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer, its beam cutting through the darkness like a blade. Step by step, I edged toward Nathaniel's office. My breath came in shallow bursts, my heart hammering like a war drum. The office door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open slowly. And froze. Nathaniel was sitting at his desk. Alive. Whole. His eyes widened the instant he saw me, and relief, and something heavier, something haunted, washed over his face. "Elara," he whispered, his voice breaking. I stumbled forward, nearly dropping the flashlight. "Nathaniel, you're alive." "How? Why? What happened?" He held up a hand. "Calm down. It's not safe yet. They're still watching, and they've been manipulating everything for years." My mind spun. Manipulating everything? What do you mean? You weren't in that coffin?" He shook his head slowly. "No. I barely escaped. I discovered a conspiracy, a plan against our family. They wanted to take everything from us, our home, our savings, even the children. I faked my death to protect you, to protect Sophie and Lucas." Tears stung my eyes, but I couldn't cry yet. I was too angry. Too scared. And the messages? "Don't trust the children." That was about them? Nathaniel nodded grimly. "Not exactly. It was about who's controlling them, and who's controlling everyone around us. You've been careful, but they were trying to turn you against me, even after they thought I was gone." I sank into the chair across from him, the weight of everything pressing down. 12 years of lies, grief, and guilt, all twisted into this moment of revelation. Nathaniel stood and crossed the room, taking my hands in his. "I never wanted you to live in fear, Elara. I wanted you to have peace. But now, we have to be smart. Together. We have to fight back and protect our family." I nodded, letting my tears fall freely. The pain, the terror, the betrayal, it all mingled with relief and hope. He was alive. We were alive. Somehow, we still had each other. And then, Nathaniel showed me something that made my breath catch. A video. Grainy, shaky footage from inside our home. Sophie and Lucas were playing in the garden, but in the background, a shadowy figure moved, always just out of focus. Watching. Waiting. "That's who's been behind it all," Nathaniel said softly. "They wanted us divided. They wanted us weak. But now, we know. And now, we fight." I felt a fire ignite inside me. Fear still lingered, but determination burned brighter. The past 12 years of loss, grief, and deception had led to this moment. I would not be broken anymore. We spent the night planning, watching footage, and securing the house. By dawn, the first rays of sunlight streamed through the windows, painting the walls in gold. For the first time in years, I felt hope. Nathaniel wrapped his arms around me, holding me close. "We survived," he whispered. "We'll survive anything now." And I knew he was right. Because love, trust, and courage, their power cannot be faked, cannot be taken. And for the first time in 12 years, I believed that no shadow, no lie, no betrayal could ever touch us again. The house was quiet once more. But inside me, something had changed forever. I had seen death, deception, and fear, and I had survived. I had learned that even in the darkest hour, truth would always find a way to shine. I held Nathaniel's hand, looked at our children sleeping peacefully upstairs, and finally let myself breathe. The nightmare was over. The truth had won. And we had each other.